Hello, and welcome back to our weekly Sunday school lesson. I am Elder Latanya Milliken of the All Nations Church in Oakland, California. My pastor is Bishop Terrence L. Milliken, and this is Lesson 1 in our fall quarter. The date of the lesson is September the 3rd, 2023, and we are in the book of Joshua. We are now transitioning back to the Old Testament. If you have your favorite translations, go ahead and put that to the side. We will be in the first chapter of Joshua, reading the first to the 6th verse, and then we're going to hop over to the 11th chapter, the 16th through the 19th verse, skip the 20th, and then pick up at the 21st and go on to the 23rd. So I'll remind you, that's quite a bit of gap, so I'll remind you a little later. The subject today: be strong and courageous. This is a story about one of my favorite characters of the Bible. And when I say characters, that makes it sound like it's not real. But I believe in the Bible and the scriptures and the inspired word of God. And I believe that these stories are real and that they happen. But this is one of my favorite. Of course, though, I have a lot of favorites. But anyway, before we get started, this is our first lesson in our fall quarter, and the fall quarter's theme is success and failure. The first unit is obedience and success, and so be strong and courageous. Our story about Joshua on today. Before we get started, we want to get some shout outs. I want to say happy belated birthday to my great niece, Jaylia. Jaylia, I'm sorry I missed your birthday last week. Happy birthday, sweetheart. We love you. Jaylia is serving in our first forces, and so keep her in your prayers. She is overseas, but she's enjoying it. She's enjoying it. Now I want to give a shout out to my brother-in-law, my famous brother-in-law. Well, he's famous to us. How about that? Because he's our brother-in-law. Jerry LaMelle. Happy birthday, Jerry LaMelle. We love you. We love you. We love you. He lives in San Antonio, Texas. His son, Christian, had a birthday last week. They've got a lot of birthdays in this time of year. And then if you're celebrating, whatever you're celebrating, God's blessings, his favor in your celebration. This is Labor Day weekend, so be safe, enjoy your family, your cookout, whatever you decide. We're wrapping up summer in our Labor Day festivities, so be safe and enjoy. Now, want to put a couple of groups of people on your prayer list. Going to ask you to pray for all those who have suffered from the hurricane, from the fires in Hawaii. I mean, there's a lot going on, and Christians are being persecuted around the globe. So many things are happening. Like the bishops say, pray for the least, the lost, and the left out. And so there's always something to pray about. So just remember others in your prayers. Thank you for that. Now let's just go to our lesson. We've talked quite a bit about the children of Israel. If you've been on this journey with me, we've talked about the children of Israel experiences, lessons, how they traveled in the wilderness. So I'm just going to give you a quick overview as I set this lesson up. So the Lord birthed a nation through Abraham, and Abraham had sons and Isaac, Jacob and his family moved to Goshen because of the famine, which was next to Egypt. And they grew there and they stayed there for a long time, and they multiplied and multiplied and multiplied. And then the Egyptians were fearful of them, so they enslaved them and they were there for over 400 years. And the Lord came and he delivered them. He lifted up a leader, Moses, to help guide their escape, if you will, from Egypt. And so as their leader, he remained their leader, that being Moses, as they left Egypt and they traveled in the wilderness. Well, they traveled to Mount Sinai where they met God. Well, they were introduced to God and they began to establish laws and commandments, and they went into a covenant. I'll be your God, and I will bless you so long as you obey me. And then the Lord blessed, he promised them a promised land. Okay. And this is what we need to kind of bring to the forefront, is the promised land. And they were on the journey to the promised land. And one of the reasons why what was a short journey turned out to be 40 years because of their murmuring and their complaining and their disobedience and their lack of faith. And so it turned out they wandered in the wilderness for 40 years. And Moses led them and taught them, and the Lord began to teach them how to worship, and they built a temple, the temple. All of these things we've learned in Sunday school on this journey. And now they are, after the 40 years, they are now at the River Jordan, and Moses has passed, and leadership is now transitioning to Joshua, and Joshua is a different type of leader, although he was Moses' assistant for years. And what I like about Joshua is that Joshua, as the assistant, he was very humble. He was very respectful, never stepped out of his bounds, and he learned and he watched and observed Moses to learn. And so he was ready. So God is now calling him to leadership. And so let's pick up, if you have your translations, now that I've set it up, we're now, the children of Israel, the whole host of them are now at the river Jordan, and this is what the Lord is instructing. Okay? So Joshua, the first chapter, the first through the sixth verse. I'm reading from the Way, my favorite translation, which is the New Living Translation. So you follow along in whatever translation you have. All right. Okay, so Joshua 1:1. After the death of Moses, the Lord's servant, the Lord spoke to Joshua, son of Nun, Moses' assistant. He said, Moses, my servant, is dead. Therefore, the time has come for you to lead these people, the Israelites, across the Jordan River into the land I am giving them. Finally, they are there. Finally, they're at the promised land. I promise you what I promised Moses. This is what the Lord is saying. Wherever you set foot, you will be on land I have given you. From the Negev wilderness in the south to the Lebanon mountains in the north, from the Euphrates River in the east to the Mediterranean Sea in the west, including all the land of the Hittites. No one will be able to stand against you as long as you live. For I will be with you as I was with Moses. I will not fail you or abandon you. Be strong and courageous, for you are the one who will lead these people to possess all the land I have sworn to their ancestors I would give them. Verse 7, can I read verse 7? Of course I can. Be strong and very courageous. Be careful to obey all the instructions Moses gave you. Do not deviate from them. Turn it either to the right or to the left. Then you will be successful in everything you do. I like that one. Okay, now let's hop over to the 11th chapter. I'll let you get there. The 11th chapter. And the 16th verse, again, that's Joshua, the 11th chapter, and the 16th verse. It reads, so Joshua, now we've got some things happen, so now we're picking up here. So Joshua conquered the entire region, the hill country, the entire Negev, the whole area around the town of Goshen, the western foothills, the Jordan Valley, the mountains of Israel, and the Galilean foothills. The Israelite territory now extended from all the way from Mount Halak, which leads to Seir in the south, as far north as Baal Gad, at the foot of Mount Hermon, in the valley of Lebanon. Joshua killed all the kings of those territories, waging war for a long time, 7 years, to accomplish this. No one in the region made peace with the Israelites except the Hivites of Gibeon. All others were defeated. Now let's skip over to 21. During the period, Joshua destroyed all the descendants of Anak, who lived in the hill country of Hebron, Debir, and Anab, and the entire hill country of Judah and Israel. He killed them all and completely destroyed their towns. None of the descendants of Anak were left in the land of Israel. These were the giants. Though some still remain in Gaza and Gath, that's where Goliath was from, Gath, and Ashdod. So Joshua took control of the entire land, just as the Lord had instructed Moses. He gave it to the people of Israel as their special possession, dividing the land among the tribes. So the land finally had rest from war. Let's hop and unpack this lesson. Quite a bit of reading, but a beautiful lesson. So the children of Israel are standing at the river Jordan, and the Lord is saying, go over and possess the promise that I am giving you. And then he maps out all of the areas, right? Lebanon to the north, the Mediterranean Sea to the west, the Euphrates River to the east, and the Gab to the south. And now, let me just let you know. So all of these lands had inhabitants. They had their enemies. They were still living there on the land. So it wasn't going to be an easy just walk over and put your tent up and your barbecue pit out. No, they had to wipe out. The instruction was to wipe everyone off the land. So they were going to battle. They were going to need God on their side. So the Lord is letting Joshua know, be courageous, be strong and be courageous. I'm going to be with you and no one will be able to stand against you. And so, and even though we hear these things humanly, right? Though we hear these things, we still have to go through the battle. And so Joshua had to go through the battle. He had to fight all of his enemies. And so this was a different time for the children of Israel. They had been traveling, all right? They had been marching and camping and traveling and camping, and they had only a few encounters with individuals that they had to go to battle with. But this now, we're full-fledged war now, having to take what God has promised them. You know, some promises you've got to fight for. You may not physically fight for them, but you got to fight your flesh, your thoughts, your doubts, right? You've got to trust no matter what is happening or what it looks like, because sometimes God gives us promises and it seems like they never gonna come, or it seems like something comes up against that. And so you've got to claim your promises. You've got to stand on your promises. Now let's think about the children of Israel. They have been promised a promised land, a land flowing with milk and honey. But when they first got there, they saw giants on the land and they were afraid to go in. Moses sent out 12 spies. 10 had a negative report. 2 had a good report. And one of those 2 that gave a good report was Joshua. That's why he's leading this campaign. And so when they were fearful, when the Lord told them, go in, take it, I got you. They were like, no, we can't do it. We like grasshoppers. So they wandered for 40 years. So waiting for this promise to come. And finally, we've got this promise. But again, you got to fight for it. They had to fight for this promise. Now, because this land was the fertile crescent. It was good land. Anything you planted there, it was beautiful land, but it was the best land, but it was giants on it. It was giants on the land. And so that's when we talk about, we were doing the reading, Anak, those were Anakim, those were giants that were living on the land. And so this particular time, Joshua, he sent out 2 spies instead of 10 spies. He learned from Moses. And I tell you, he conquered. He conquered, oh Lord, it shares with us all that he conquered, all the lands that he conquered. And listen, all of these little towns had kings. All of them had kings. So he had to conquer all of these kings. Now there was this one group of people. No, and the scriptures say none of these countries, towns, people made peace with them, or what I want to say, made a treaty with them. None of them. So they, except for the Gibeon. And so what happened in this particular story, they had before they were going to possess the land, they had disguised themselves as poor people, and they met up with the children of Israel, and they made a treaty with the children of Israel, and the children of Israel made a treaty with them without consulting the Lord, and then learned that they were not who they said they were, but they had already made a treaty. So these particular people, they could not fight. So these were the only people that they did not go up against. But this campaign took 7 years. And when you think about it, it was a lot to do. It was a lot to do. And sometimes it seems like the promise takes a long time, right? God gives you a promise and it takes a long time. And sometimes when you go through things, it seems like God is not there, because you get all of these indications that it's not going to happen, and the enemy speaks to you and tell you, oh, that's you're not going to get that, this, that, and the other. But God is with you when He gives you a promise. Sometimes you just got to wait on it, and you've got to hold on and stand on those promises, because when God says He's with you, He's with you. I'm reading. Real quickly, I'm reading I've read it before, but I'm reading it again, a divine revelation of hell. And in the divine revelation of hell, Mary Baxter, the Lord takes her He takes her to hell in her spirit. He takes her spirit to hell, and she experiences hell, but Jesus is with her. But Jesus tells her, I'm gonna be with you all the time. It may not seem like I'm there. There are gonna be times where it seems like I'm not there, but I'm there. And so there was this time in the story where she was in the heart of hell, and the Lord Jesus wasn't there. And so the Lord allowed her, He pulled back and He allowed her to really experience hell. And so we're running out of time, and I can't give you all the details, but if you could read A Divine Revelation of Hell by Mary Baxter, it's a great story. It's really good. And long story short, Jesus told her, I had to allow you to really experience hell to know it's real. Sometimes the Lord have to allow us to really experience what we need to experience to learn, to appreciate Him. And so the children of Israel, through the leadership of Joshua, were able to conquer the land. Now, they did not move everyone off the land. Okay, it was not till David and Solomon's rule that the Israelites fully had control of all of the promised land, because as the reading says in the scripture, that there were giants, but there were giants in Gaza, Gath, and Ashdod, right? And there were people there, and these were the Philistines. And when you read in the Judges, Samson fought the Philistines, and David fought the Philistines, but it wasn't until David and Solomon's rule, it's more like David, because Solomon had peace, David, that they conquered the Philistines. And so You know, in fact, David fought Goliath, who lived in Gab. So all of this story helps us to understand that they finally found peace. The children of Israel finally secured their inheritance with the promise of God. It's a beautiful story, a beautiful lesson. And the fact of the lesson is to show how God keeps his promises. It may take some time, but he keeps his promise to his people. And Joshua and the people obeyed him. They went over and they followed his instruction, and he was with them and he fought with them, and they were successful. The principle of the lesson is to demonstrate that God is faithful in keeping his promises. Wait on him. Wait on him. He will not fail you. He is a faithful God. And lastly, the application is to teach that when we obey God, we will experience his blessing. And that wraps up our first lesson in our quarter. Next week, we will see that we have nothing to fear if we recognize that God can protect us in our situation. And in my comments, I will leave next week's lesson where you can prepare to read. God bless you. Listen. Make sure you share the word. It's important. It's in the word. We are delivered by the word. We are set free by the word. It's the word that gives us joy and hope. And it's the word. Knowing the word helps us build our faith. And so share the word. Like, subscribe. Until next week, I love each of you. That's why I do this. And pray for me, and I'll pray for you. God bless you. Bye-bye.